batchmates. So, uh, Mark Luque, BS Met, Glenn Villanueva, BS Geo, and Ryan Belches, also BS Geo. And for those of you who are not familiar, my husband is also an EMAN, so he is Ricky Obtinalla, batch 95A, BS Geo. So for the next slide, I'm a BS Met. I graduated 1998 and I immediately proceeded to graduate studies after BS. So I graduated year 2000 in Mapua, also Master of Engineering. And fortunately at that time, ang technical advisor ko ay EMANS din, si Ermin O'Connor. So ang pinaka-poging EMANS. So after that, I joined University of Perpetual Health System, so as an engineering instructor. And just a quick anecdote, during my teaching demo, our dean asked fellow faculty members if they have questions to me. And at that time, one faculty member asked me, Emans ka ba? And I said yes. And that faculty member is Joel Palacol. So I've known Joel since naging co-faculty kami sa University of Perpetual Help. So currently, he's still connected with Perpetual. Okay. For after the academe, I joined the industry. So this started my semiconductor experience. So from 2004 to 2009, I was a materials engineer in Intel Cavite. At the time, there was still an Intel Philippines. And again, fortunately, I was able to meet a fellow Eman, so Enrico Garcia. He was one of our designer at that time. So nakilala ko din si Enrico uh, at Intel. Afterwards, I joined SunPower for about a year, and then an opportunity came for me to join Samsung Electromechanics, one of the umbrellas of Samsung Electronics, and this is situated in Busan, South Korea. So from 2011 to 2018, I was a principal development engineer, and we lived there for almost 8 years, and then last year before the pandemic erupted, I was able to rejoin Intel. So this time I'm part of the Intel Japan team and I'm a senior supply chain engineer. So as you would see, yung career path ko, it's not really directly linked or aligned with metallurgical engineering. However, at the time that I graduated in Mapua, there was a recession, and many of the Mets that I know joined the semiconductor industry, which I think was a good industry that catered for many metallurgical engineers. So for the today's presentation, I'll be covering what is a semiconductor chip, application of semiconductor, and then top manufacturers, and then causes of the global chip shortage. So for the semiconductor chip, so semiconductor chip, it's also called IC or integrated circuit, sometimes chip. So those are the terms that are interchangeably used for the semiconductor chip. So basically, it's a set of electronics mounted in a small flat piece of semiconductor material, which is usually silicon. So dito, the name after the Silicon Valley, it was named after the semiconductor material silicon. And it was Robert Norton Noyce, an American physicist, who popularized this microchip. This is a typical example of a microchip. You would see here that this is a chip mounted to a substrate, and then there is the PCB or the motherboard. And this cross-section view is showing a substrate. So the substrate is the commodity that I'm most familiar with. So my work for more than 15 years is concentrated on in this direct material substrate. And as a front view, you would see a package like this. So if you open your laptop or your desktop, if you disassembled it, you will find several semiconductor package similar to this one. So for the semiconductor chip, it is etched on a single slice of semiconductor material to produce a microchip. The semiconductor industry is a very complex industry. It is composed of fab manufacturing, assembly test manufacturing, and then OEM. Under the fab manufacturing or wafer fab, you would see a wafer like this. An individual unit is called the die, and then it is normally the output of the fab manufacturing. Afterwards, this die will be supplied to assembly test manufacturing, wherein there will be the die, the direct materials, indirect materials, and then the output would be similar to this package. And eventually, it will be supplied to the OEM or the original equipment manufacturer. So basically, in Asia, there are several fab manufacturing and assembly test manufacturing. In the Philippines, there are several also assembly test manufacturing. And when we talk about the OEM or the original equipment manufacturer, so these are the for the electronics and manufacturing like HP, Dell, and then for the auto industry like Ford or Toyota, and then computer software like Microsoft. So basically, this is the overall process that the semiconductor will undergo in order for it to be available in the OEM. And one good thing about the semiconductor is, as I mentioned earlier, in the late 90s, many of the Philippine metallurgical engineers joined the semiconductor industry. We were either materials engineer, failure analysis engineer, or quality and reliability engineer. So at the time when I joined the semiconductor industry, the materials engineering was a relatively young course in UP at that time, and most of the materials engineer's job is being done by either a metallurgical engineer or a chemical engineer. So at Intel alone, we were five from Mapua. We have Doc Winston Ginto, Utol Enrico Garcia, me, uh, Ian Estenoso, and then Chris Flores. And then there were many UP Met, probably 10 to 15 metallurgical engineers from UP. They are either our materials engineer or failure analysis engineer. So the semiconductor industry really provided a good working environment for the metallurgical engineers that were not able to enter either the steel manufacturing or the mining industry. So the next slide, I'll be showing a video about the fab manufacturing.
We are
Let me know if you could hear this.
we are trying to manufacture something that nobody else in the world is able to do. And so every day we're doing things that we've never done before. I spend most of my mornings in the clean room. It's the best place to be for an engineer because that's where everything is happening. That's where we're actually making our chips. In the semiconductor world, smaller is better. For 14 nanometer, we're looking at a ultra low power device. Everything behind our technologies, you make it smaller, you make it faster, and you're able to use a lot less power consumption. 2 technologies ago, we used human blood cells as a measure of how big our transistors were. If we look at a transistor, like a gate length now, we're on the order of like 30 atoms. It's really small. There's not much else to compare it to other than an atom.
Okay, so that video provided just a snapshot of what's happening in the fab manufacturing. And as what the engineer has shared, the fab manufacturing is normally in a clean room environment. So when we say clean room environment, so the particulates, the dust, the FM, those are controlled, and they play a key role in maintaining the overall quality and reliability of the semiconductor package. So it's called clean room because it's comparable to the operating room. Okay. So basically, that is what a semiconductor chip is. And on my next slide, I will go to the application of semiconductor. So the semiconductor has a very wide range of applications. So starting from our home appliances. So nowadays the word smart, smart TV, smart ref, smart vacuum. So those are all powered by semiconductor chip. And then from our daily lives down to the more sophisticated or high-tech applications such as computers and space shuttles. So basically, those are the vast application of the semiconductor chip. And recently, with the newer models of the automobile, so the controlling airbags, power windows, catalytic converters, and dashboard display. So these are the applications of the semiconductor chip in the automobile. And we have what we call ADAS or ADAS, the Advanced Driver Assistance System. So these are group of electronics that manages by a sensor camera that helps the driver in assisting and parking functions. So basically, overall, the application of semiconductor chip range from as simple as a vacuum cleaner down to a very sophisticated one. And the main objective of the semiconductor chip nowadays in our daily lives is to make our life more convenient and more comfortable, and in terms of safety and security, higher level than previous. So the next video will provide a good representation of the application of semiconductor chips.
What do we mean when we say all you need is an idea and Intel inside? That in today's fast moving, high tech world, big ideas are powered by a one of a kind partnership with Intel because our customer first approach is more than just a byline. From the moment we put the silicon in Silicon Valley, Intel has been accelerating the industry in big ways, setting a course for a new era of bold innovation. No one else is this obsessed with engineering a brighter future. That's why we're driving the industry's biggest inflection points, putting intelligence where it's needed most, in ways that only Intel can, with a multi-architecture approach that empowers our customers to transform their businesses from the inside out. We're democratizing AI in big ways, combining software and hardware to open up new possibilities. And we're moving that innovation around the world at lightning speeds with our advances in 5G. Collaborating with global operators and creating a new vision for networks of the future. We're taking intelligence and bringing it to the edge. Accelerating business outcomes with over 30,000 edge-to-cloud solution deployments. And we're taking that same innovation to the streets, deploying new technology and advanced data layers to make autonomous driving not only possible, but safe and seamless. Every day, we create world-changing technology that enriches the lives of every person on Earth. Making bold moves, because Intel has the unique portfolio breadth and depth, plus the global scale to serve as an unparalleled catalyst for our partners' biggest ambitions. So if you've got a big idea, let's go off and do something wonderful together.
So my presentation is kind of biased because I'm a current employee of Intel. But basically, not only Intel, but other companies as well. With regards to the semiconductor industry, the main objective is really to make our lives more comfort, more convenient, and higher safety and security. With regards to the top manufacturer of semiconductor, there are several manufacturers, but I indicated here three. TSMC, so the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. So this was founded in 1987 by Morris Chang. So currently, TSMC is the leading semiconductor company in terms of technology. They have been catering for customers like AMD, Apple, and Nvidia. And the TSMC has been growing as a company since 25 years ago. The next company is the Samsung. So Samsung Electronics Company. So this is a South Korean company. So this was my former employer. It was founded by Ibong Chol in 1969. And with regards to the presence to the other countries, Samsung is very present. They can be seen in 74 countries. They have factories or sales and marketing, and they employ around 290,000 people. Currently, they are considered the largest manufacturer of consumer electronics. When we talk about consumer electronics, these are the appliances that we use: the TV, electric fan, vacuum, or washing machine. So Samsung is really leading in terms of this consumer electronics. And just this week, they were announced that they are currently the top semiconductor company. And in Korea, since we live in Korea for around 8 years, Samsung is we've seen how Samsung is really contributing to the GDP of South Korea. They were around 15% of the contribution to the GDP of South Korea, and they have ventured to every imaginable business in South Korea, like banking, shipping, car, textile, department store, insurance. So all of those kind of industries, Samsung is a key player in Korea. So this is considered the most sought company for any newly graduate in South Korea. The third company is Intel, so Intel Corporation. So this is my current employer. It was founded in 1968 by Gordon Moore and Robert Noyce. However, with regards to the leadership and the vision of Andy Grove, those were the one that really catapulted Intel into a one of the leading semiconductor companies. So Andy Grove was really a visionary, and Intel this largest semiconductor chip manufacturer by revenue. This was probably last quarter applicable, but this week it was announced that it's already Samsung that is leader. But Intel played a key role in making the processor in our PC more accessible or more available to the general public. So in the Philippines, previously, the Intel Technology Philippines employed around 1,000 plus employees. I was part of those 1,000 plus employees down to the probably last shipment in 2009 when it closed. And currently, Intel still has several assembly test manufacturing in Asia, in China, Malaysia, and one of the largest in Vietnam. And with regards to their fab manufacturing, so it can be seen in Arizona, Oregon, and New Mexico. So these are the top manufacturers of semiconductor chip. The next slide is more of the top manufacturers by country and region. So currently, 75% of the fab manufacturing companies are situated in Asia. So this is making US and EU companies not comfortable with the proportion because 75% is really a big chunk of wafer fab capacity. And with this, US and EU are currently having some expansion with regards to changing this to around probably 50% based on the analyst. You would see fab manufacturing expansion in US or other parts of EU. One notable item in the top manufacturers by country or region is Taiwan. So as I mentioned earlier, TSMC is really a leading company in the semiconductor chip industry. So in 25 years, their growth has been consistent from 6.3 to 18.8, and they are currently the top contributor in the world. And of course, China, like in any other industry, they are becoming a strong player. And currently, the Chinese semiconductor companies are receiving a vast government financial support for its R&D. And with this, China, Taiwan, and also together with Japan, Korea, and Singapore, they make up the 75% fab manufacturing in Asia, which I think for us that is a good environment and a good opportunity with
Good
regards to
opportunity with regard to
uh, employment. So the next slide, I'll be sharing about the global chip shortage.
Carry on, sister. Carry on.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, so the next two slides, I'll be sharing about the causes of the global chip shortage. One is COVID-19, and then other one is the geopolitical situation between US and China, the trade war. But basically, like any other industry, when COVID-19 happened, the overall chip industry was greatly impacted by this pandemic. So when the pandemic started early last year, many of the auto sales fell by 50%. This is from February to April 2020 because of the widespread stay-at-home orders. So basically, when this happened, car companies and their part suppliers, they drastically cut their purchases of semiconductor. However, on the other hand, the computer and other electronic demand increased dramatically because of the work from home setup and then online learning platforms. Initially, we thought if we have a smartphone or a tab, we are already okay. But apparently, with this pandemic, enabling a work from home setup as well as the online learning platforms, we really need a laptop or a desktop. And with that, the semiconductor chip was allocated to the electronic segment instead of the automobile. So there's only a limited capacity of the chip. The global chip capacity is limited. So when the semiconductor manufacturers weren't getting any orders from auto manufacturers, they started to reallocate their production to electronic segment. However, fortunately or unfortunately, the auto sales recovered faster than expected, and then China's economy bounced back earlier than what was forecasted by the analyst. And then uh, many people tend to or thought about buying automobiles because would like to avoid the public transportation because of the pandemic. So with this limited capacity that is already been reallocated to the electronic segment, somehow the auto industry doesn't have enough chip to support to their cars, creating a global chip shortage. And just to give an illustration, this one, this is about around 1 million vehicles in North America from Ford, Stellantis, and GM. So they are not able to continuously distribute their cars because they are lacking the chip that they need for the newer models of cars. This is how big the impact of the global chip shortage, primarily because of the COVID-19, and the automobile industry is one of the big hit of this shortage. The next one is the geopolitical. It's a geopolitical factor. This is the trade war between U.S. and China. So when the Trump administration in 2018 started regulating the sales of semiconductor, Huawei, CTE, and other Chinese firms, um, the the US federal government saw that Huawei, CTE, and other Chinese firms that are being used in being used has security risk. That's why they opted to regulate and eventually blacklist these firms. And with that, Huawei technology dominates the 5G networking gear. And with this, before the US could provide the full sanction, which not only applies to Huawei but also to their primary suppliers. What Huawei did was they did some inventory or stockpiling. So kumbaga nag-panic buying yung Huawei sa mga primary suppliers so that they will still be able to continue with their production because it's not only US that's their major customer. And with this panic buying of Huawei, it created or it further aggravated the already strained global chip supply. And additionally, the American firms were also cut off from buying chips from Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation, the SMIC. This was also blacklisted by the US government. With this blacklisting of Chinese firms, it created an impact on the overall chip supply. And with this trade war between US and China, it is expected that this will still continue. With the 5G networking gear being a critical factor to this, they're saying that if, for example, sa current 4G, you need 10 chips, but if you're going to 5G to achieve better connection and stability, you just need 40% more. So, kung 10 lang ang kailangan mo sa 4G, sa 5G, kailangan mo ng 14 na semiconductor chip. And with that, it created the already strained chip supply. So the geopolitical or the trade war between US and China, somehow it is one also of the causes of the global chip shortage. And then additionally, in 2020, there were multiple fire incidents in Japan. So Japan is not only a fab manufacturer, but most of the raw material suppliers are situated in Japan. And with multiple fire incidents that happened to big companies, it further aggravated the already strained overall chip supply. And also there was a cold front in Texas, and apparently in Texas there are also many key players in the overall semiconductor supply. And with those incidents, those are minor factors that somehow affected or further strained the global chip shortage. The analysts are saying that even if the pandemic will be over, the trade war between US and China, it will still continue, and somehow it will still continue to affect the overall global chip supply. So this is the last slide of my main presentation. So we keep on talking about 5G with regards to the US and China trade war. So basically, when we talk about 5G, it means more speed and better stability. But this is being looked into as a very critical factor in fully connected industries and cities. So by 2035, it is expected that the 5G will be greatly employed in manufacturing, meaning it will help in the efficiency of the factories in the manufacturing. So greater efficiency, more output, more money. And with this, that's why US and China are heavily providing huge investments in 5G. So by 2035, it is expected that the output and employment in leading 5G countries in 2035, majority will be coming from US and China. There are currently 7 countries now that are heavily providing investment in the 5G. So the US, France, Germany, UK, China, South Korea, and Japan. And if you look at these countries, the commonality of these countries, they are innovators or they have many innovations in their countries. That's why by 2035, they are expecting that they will reap any huge investments that they're giving in the 5G now. So that's why 5G plays a critical role in the overall global chip shortage. Okay. So the succeeding slides that I have is more of sharing of photos that was inspired by J. Concepcion in Utol Jojo Mejia. So may tanong ba kayo sa main presentation before I proceed with the other slides?
Atul, for purposes of kind of mining in the Philippines, what are the raw materials for chips for this chips?
Gold and copper are heavily used in the semiconductor industry.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So not only in semiconductor package itself, but also in the raw material suppliers, so copper and then eventually gold.
Okay. Si Tol Larry may dalawang tanong. Tol, you want to pass it on or can you see the questions, Sarah, in the chat? Or do you want me to read it to you?
No, design and speed. Um, Currently, when we talk about the semiconductors, they are saying smaller is better. So, in terms of the speed, I won't be able to articulate the actual speed, but basically now, if you buy a laptop, it is expected that the speed is the one as the key factor for um, the competition between, for example, Intel and AMD. And with this, I think the forthcoming innovation is not really on the laptop or the personal computer application itself, but more on the servers and the larger companies. Like, for example, Microsoft, they are working with Intel to have a better software that can be enabled through some of the innovations with Intel. And server, meaning yung mga malalaking companies, they would like to provide more stable server capability so that there will be no interruption in their overall operation. So it's not really the personal computing that will greatly impact in the upcoming innovations, but basically more of the industry or the server segment as a whole.
All just to add dun sa electronic industry. Yeah, correct yung kay Utol Sara in sa mga innovations ng mga server. But in long term, you will see also yung mga battery management, just like dun sa mga electronic vehicles. Those are the future that we are looking at. Pati mga battery management ng mga power ng mga bahay, no? Just like the solar panels. Those are managed by battery systems and in electronics industries. So yung sa question ni Utol Larry about house designs, yeah, it's more on yung mga air conditioning units, solar panels, battery management. Those are part of the future. And talking about 5Gs, that will be part of the communication setup ng mga first world country. You don't have to travel from time to time, but you have to use a 5G. It's just like virtual reality ng mga ng industry natin ngayon.
Thank you, Todd.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, S. So the other question is in addition to the okay. Yes, this trade
between
war,
Japan also,
Japan
di
and
ba?
South
And
Korea.
South
So
Korea, di ba? Meron din.
yes, there is. So until now, somehow the slavery that happened 'di ba sinakop ng Japan yung Korea, and
Yes,
there are
yes.
war victims. Those war victims were compensated already. However, uh, they think the compensation was not enough. So they keep on raising to higher court the compensation that is needed. And with that, the former Prime Minister Abe was not in agreement with that. So what he did was he told all the primary suppliers, uh, primarily in the semiconductor, na wag mag-supply immediately sa South
So,
Korea. There would be like additional layer of approval. Like for example, previously in 3 days you could get your materials from Japan to South Korea, which are very critical in, for example, in the semiconductor equipment. So in that case, because of this sanction, hindi naman sanction, but like a a direction from the previous prime minister, yung three days na approval, it became weeks. And somehow
wow.
the South Korean companies were not really prepared. They are really relying with regards to the raw materials that are coming from Japan. So 30 years ago, Japan was leading in the semiconductor industry, but uh, times change. But the raw material, until now, a lot of countries and companies are still um, relying on Japanese companies. And with that, yung trade war na yon, eventually na ano naman siya na resolve in a way na they went back to the normal approval process. But parang pinakita lang ni Abe na may kakayahan siya na gawin yun if
So
he wants to.
okay na ngayon, Tol. Medyo na-address na
Okay
yun.
naman siya
But
ngayon.
that's good, no? Yeah.
Yeah. Yung sa I think with regards to the Afghanistan situation, I think there will be no direct impact to the semiconductor industry. It will really be between China and US. And as what I mentioned previously, Chinese government is investing heavily in their R&D for the semiconductor chip.
Yeah.
One article that I read, kung gaano kalaki yung kanilang budget sa nuclear power, ganun din yung budget na binibigay nila sa R&D just to show that they are very serious. And recently naman, yung recently yung sa US, there were several lawmakers that were rallying for the US government that dagdagan yung allocated na budget also for the R&D or making, di ba gusto ng US ngayon yung made in US. So that's why they're encouraging companies to set up semiconductor companies to expand their presence in US. And Intel has been very active in that. Our CEO even attends yung mga hearing with the lawmakers just to make sure that the government will really provide the budget that they're requesting. Yung mga raw materials naman na from Japan, since ang exposure ko is more on the direct materials. So substrate, which I mentioned previously, was a direct material used in the packaging industry. Also, the gold wire, solder balls, solder resist. So with regards to the package itself, halos lahat 'yon galing ng Japan. And currently yung trabaho ko, I'm in the substrate team. For the substrate, if there are multiple substrate companies in the world, majority of that is in Japan. Right now, the smallest transistor in nanometers can Intel manufacture. High volume manufacturing, we are 10 nanometers now. The one that you're seeing, the uh, Tiger Lake, Ice Lake, Alder Lake, those are 10 nanometers. However, as I mentioned previously, TSMC is really the leading with regards to nanometers. They are high volume now at 7 nanometers. Kaya yung mga companies like AMD, Apple, they are going to Nvidia, yes, they are going to TSMC. And TSMC is catering to fabless companies. Like for example, Apple doesn't have any factory of its own. They have the idea, the design, and they will go to TSMC, and then TSMC will manufacture for them a
A1
chip.
chips nila, yeah.
Yes, correct. And with that, even for example, the several components of Apple, it is also being manufactured by different companies situated in China. So, pag-iisipin nyo, Apple is really like a very innovative company kasi wala silang sariling kanila, wala silang factory pero nakakapag-produce sila ng produkto.
Thank you, Sarah, sa presentation mo. Maganda. I've been following Intel since 90s. Most admired company yan, okay? But lately, mga 90s and then 2000 early, tapos they got behind with the mobile. So sa Qualcomm. Pero ngayon, their market cap is only 200. Vice Nvidia, na overtake sila ng Nvidia, which is over 500. I don't have background sa electronics, but I've been following up this in a financial point of view. So, tama ka, this is the future, innovations are more linked to artificial intelligence. Yeah, NVIDIA is leading. So watch out for NVIDIA.
Yeah, that's correct.
I can share. Or financial, if you're investing in stock market or something, artificial intelligence, 5G, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, AMD na behind ng Intel eh. Not I know you're employee but nahuli sila ng konti na they were I think because of the leadership nila
Yeah.
ng
So
yeah
that's why it was really a very welcoming change
yeah
when Pat
parang wake
Gelsinger
up
went
call
back.
yeah
Yeah, went back to Intel. So I don't know if you watch any of his video, but when he speaks, he's really very passionate, and you feel very inspired kapag nagsasalita siya tungkol sa future ng company. In a ways,
yeah
visionary. That's how I personally look at Pat Gelsinger. But hopefully, we could go back to the, kumbaga, tinatawag nilang glory days of Intel with regards
yeah
to
si
the,
Andrew Grove one of the
yes,
most admired CEO siyang Hungarian na ano siya yung Into the Paranoid basahin niyo yung libro niya yeah yeah
okay.
that's good yeah thank you maganda.
Okay, I would like to share some slides if wala lang tanong for now. So these photographs are collections of photographs that are EMANS related. So sabi ko nga, as inspired by Utol Jojo Mea and J Concepcion, nag-compile din kami ni Ricky ng mga photos. And in this slide, I would like to pay tribute to Tin Cruz. So she passed away 2016. So siya yung EMANS na nagpang-abot kami. Batchmate siya ni Erwin Sanggalang, Ria Clavio, J Concepcion, Edsel. So with this one page, so hopefully we could always remember Tin.
Oh,
Um, so since we live in Korea for almost 8 years, kapag may pagkakataon makipagkita-kit sa mga fellow Emans, we always do. And I think just like any of you, kapag may kasal dati, binyag, or even lamay na maaaring dalawin yung kapwa Emma, we do. So this image was taken in 2004 nung kinasal yung utol natin si Utol Weng. And this is one particular wedding na ang dami naming Emmans na umattend. And in 2014, I was able to meet Cesar Gan and his family.
oh,
And in 2015, si Sis Jen tsaka yung family niya nagstay sa amin for several days. And then in 2017 naman, si Utol Reina Rabe. So nagstay din siya sa amin in Busan in 2017. And kapag may mga Emans na umuwi at nagkataon na umuwi din kami, so nakipagkita kami, kaya ni Utol S, and then ni Utol Rolly na dati nasa Singapore, Utol Weng, New Zealand, and then Utol Pai nasa Australia. So kita-kits kami na Jay, nila Gilbert. So anyone na maaring makipagkita at konting inom, so we do take the opportunity na makipag-inuman sa mga utol. Okay. The next slide is, since hindi pa tayo maaaring maka-travel, so these are the photographs taken by Ricky sa almost 8 taon namin pagtira sa South Korea. So I hope you enjoy these photographs. So in Busan, there are many temples that kapag maaari na mag-travel, if you wanna go to Busan, Busan is a beautiful place. It has mountains, beaches, and many temples and tourist spot that you could go through.
how far
In
away
include
is it from Seoul, Sam?
Pag
Malayo.
mag-take
Malayo
ka
pa.
ng speed train, it will be around 3.5 hours.
Layo pa.
Yes.
Layo.
So that's why si Utol Rainier, kasi nag-travel siya mag-isa sa Seoul, pati si Utol Jen, dun muna sila. Tapos after ilang days, nag-speed train sila papunta sa amin sa Busan. So ganun yung ginawa nila previously. Okay. We've also indicated here the UN cemetery. So nagpunta kami dito ni na Otol Rainier, and we were very moved when we saw the flag of the Philippines.
Oh,
Yeah, in commemoration of the Filipinos that participated in the Korean War. So I mean, as a Filipino, we felt na it's a very good gesture.
nice.
Yeah. And tapos sa South Korea naman, of course, the capital is Seoul. There are many places you could visit there. palaces and other tourist spot. And para dun sa mahilig manood ng K-drama, K-pop. So, yung mga sis tsaka yung mga asawa ng mga utols at mga anak ng mga utols. So, pag mari na mag-travel, I think this is one place or city that we would like to travel to. Okay.
Yun dong.
Yeah. So, nagkaroon din kami ng opportunity mag-travel sa mga probinsya, like North Gyeongsang, Jeju, and South Chola. You will be able to see that the South Koreans has really preserved their history, tradition, culture, and heritage. Kahit na marami silang K-pop or K-drama, they really took time to take care of their heritage, which is on our part, it was a good cultural immersion para sa amin ni Ricky. Okay. The last slide, wala pa kami napuntahan dito sa South Korea, sa Japan, kahit na almost magto 2 years na ako kasi nga dahil sa pandemic. The only thing that was significant that we were able to see, hindi rin kami nakanood ng live kasi bawal yung spectators, was the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. So I think like any of you, when Hidilyn Diaz got the first gold, we were full of emotions and it was a happy time. So this is something that I mean, Ricky and I would like to place in this presentation as part of the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Hopefully, kung may pagkakataon kami na mag-present in the future, sana may photos na kami ng Japan related. Pero sa ngayon, wala pa talaga kaming napasyalan dito. Okay. So that ends my presentation for tonight. So I hope you found it interesting kahit na hindi siya directly linked sa metallurgical engineering.
No, that is great. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Tol.
Thank you, Tol. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was nice. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, kumusta? First, kumustahin natin si Rona. Ito, nandiyan dyan. Asan siya? Where is Rona?
Nawala. There she is.
Hello.
There, she's there.
Hello.
Sister, kumusta ka?
Buhay pa.
Oh, dapat naman, no? How are you? Pang ilan days
Okay
mo na,
na
Tol?
ako.
Pang ilan days mo na?
Konting
Since
hingal na
inspection?
lang. Tsaka konting ubo.
Okay
na.
Magto 2 weeks na ba? Wala pa? Since yung infection mo?
Tapos na yung 14 days ko. Ano na lang daw, meron pa akong 7 days na step down period daw. Kaya andito pa rin ako sa isolation facility.
Diba after 2 weeks, dapat pwede na clinical clearance yun pagkuha na?
Binigyan na akong clearance. Tapos extension pa ng another 1 week.
Pero okay na ang pakiramdam mo, Tol? Okay ka na?
Okay na. Balik na uli sa normal. May hingal lang konti. Hindi ko alam kung saan nanggagaling. Pag sunod-sunod yung salita, para kang may hika.
Pulmonary, yung sa sa lungs yun, di ba?
Sa lungs.
Normally sa lungs.
Parang gusto mo humingang malalim.
Ayan si Doc Castro, i-diagnose ka ni Doc Castro na.
Nagtatrabaho na uli, binigyan na uli ako trabaho.
Araw-araw.
Huwag ka muna magtrabaho, pahinga muna.
Bakasyon ka muna, Tol. Uwi ka na muna. Pagkatapos.
Oo. Ingat lang kasi basta ang importante dyan, walang physical dysfunction, yun ang
mahina internet ko.
Yeah.
Pero may schedule ka na ba ng vaccination after? Kasi pag clear ka na, pwede na i-vaccinate, di ba?
Wait, 90 days yata.
3 months ba?
Yeah. 20 days. Depende sa dapat kasing
Kanyang kahina yung signal dito.
Malakas naman yung dating.
Okay lang, Tol.
Yeah, you're clear. Linaw naman, Tol.
Ayan ha, kahit on her sick bed, talagang hindi yan ng EMANS,
Saan mo nga nakuha yun, Tol? Saan ka nahawaan?
Ewan ko ba nito? Saan ka nahawaan, Rona?
Mindanao,
na
siguro.
nawala na.
Nag-freeze.
Nag-freeze lang sandali.
Oo.
May mga previous cases na tol sa kanila sa Pilsaga eh. Mga local transmission na yan dyan eh, di ba?
Doon sa
Corona.
base camp nyo. Saan ka nahawan, tol? Wala.
Nawala. Saan ka daw nahawaan, Rona?
Wala.
Nawawala. Ayan na ulit.
Hindi dumadating yata yung volume sa kanya.
Naglalag siguro tol, naglalag.
Oo, mahina ang dating. Kasi nasa ano ba naman yan eh? Nasa ano siya? Agusan del Sur.
Sa bundok.
Sa bundok, oo.
Nasa Minahan pa.
Oo.
Tol, saan ka sa Agusan del Sur? Yung dating Banahaw?
Oo, ito yun.
Oh, yeah? Oh. Diyan kami galing nila Jun. Nila Norman.
Ganun ba?
Banahaw, yeah.
Yeah.
Banahaw Mining.
Banahaw Mining.
Kay Colonel Abdal na ngayon yan, di ba?
Betty Lino.
Kay Colonel Afdal.
I see.
Meron siyang resort sa Mount Samal.
Saan mo daw nakuha yan, Rona? Sa airport? Kala pupunta mo ng airport?
Kasi ako yung nag-i-establish ng mga camps. So ako yung namimili ng mga gamit. Siguro
isa sa mga nahawakan mo.
Bili-bili ng mga gamit, laging nasa labas.
Yeah.
Tapos sa bangko, ang tagal ko lagi sa bangko. Baka doon ko nakuha eh. Baka sa bangko ko nakuha eh.
Pero nakamask ka?
Nakamask, saka naka-facial.
Nakamask, pero alam mo yung parang yung ang tao kasi sa bangko dito para in and out na wala lang. Yung masyado relax yung bangko.
Pero nakamask ka all that time, tol?
Oo. Pero siguro pagka, siyempre, ano yung salamin mo, mag-alis ka ng mask, napawisan ka. Ganun siguro ko nakuha eh. Kasi kung sa labas lang na namimili, hindi naman ako lumalapit sa tao. Pero sa bangko, pag marami ng tao, hindi mo na dikit, naka-confine kayo, tapos naghihintay ka.
Yeah.
Mas prone sa closest space eh.
Oo, yun pa. Minsan kasi pagka galing Manila yung pera, kalahating araw, nandun lang ako sa bangko, naghihintay.
Yun na yun.
Yung exposure mo, mataas yung exposure eh.
Hindi, yung indoor talaga na iba yung HVAC ng mga dapat may negative pressure. Yun lang.
Sabi ko nga, kung alam ko lang na gano'n, akala ko mas safe kasi nasa loob ako. Naggala na lang ako na naggala.
Kasi closest space yun eh. Mas mabilis ang transmission niya.
Ano yun, tol? Nag-withdraw kayo ng pera? Hindi kayo nag-go-online?
Oo, kasi
pasweldo sa tao?
Parang ako ngayon, admin manager. So yung pera, pasweldo sa mga tao, sa akin lahat. So pag kinuha ko sa bangko, ang clearance niya, gusto kalahating araw bago ma-release. So hihintay ka doon kasi di mo din siya pwedeng iwan. Baka may
ATM na lang sila.
ID o pipirmahan o ano. Bago niya ma-release.
Paano yun? Susunod, babalik ka ulit doon sa bangko?
Yan ang hindi
pag-isipan mo muna.
Baka pwedeng online.
May assistant na ako. Kumuha na ako assistant. Siya naman.
Baka pwedeng online kayo. Arrangement sa bangko.
Takot na ako lumabas. Parang takot ako lumabas nga. Parang
good decision yan, tol.
Oo.
Good decision niya kumuha ng assistant.
Oo. Kaso pag lumapit si assistant mo, baka hawahan ka rin ulit.
Ayun na nga.
I-share mo yung risk.
Nung nilalagnat ako, may dalawa kasi ako assistant, isa accounting clerk, tsaka yung isa assistant ko talaga. Sila yung lapit na lapit kasi sila yung inuutusan ko. Buti nga nag-negative eh. Kasi walang, sabi ko, mas baka positive ako kasi ang tagal ko nang nilalagnat. Parang 1 week na akong nilalagnat bago ako nagpa-swab.
Wow, nako.
Tagal yun, matagal.
Tapos parang after 1 week na nagpa-swab ako, ano na,
nawala na.
Nawala si Tol.
Ay, nako. Basta mag-ingat. Ayan.
Dapat tol, continuous sanitation lang sa kamay para maiwasan may lapit sa mukha mo or sa
Baka sa pera. Baka dumikit sa pera yung
Pwede rin.
Doon kumapit yung
Kaya nga, mas maganda sana kung online na lang yung pasweldo niya, di ba? Or bahala ng mga tao, ATM na lang para wala kang... Kasi sa minahan, parang cash talaga binibigay.
Dapat cashless, no?
Para talagang...
Ro, unmute ka, Ro. Unmute.
Naka-mute ka, Ron.
Naka-ATM ang sweldo, kaso ang dami namin bagong tauhan. So, kailangan kong i-cash kasi inaayos pa yung sweldo, yung ATM nila.
Ay talagang hindi maiwasan kahit anong gawin mo pagka talagang it's para kasi parang invisible na enemy, it could be anywhere.
Oo.
Ano yan, Tol?
Kahit ano gawin mo.
Ano yan, Tol? Would you know kung Delta variant yan o yung talagang normal na variant lang?
Hindi ko alam kung tinest, pero baka normal lang. Nakalagay lang sa akin yung lang.
General, no? Na positive lang nakalagay.
Oo, nakaganon lang.
Good morning, Evelyn.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Goodbye.
Norman, kumusta pala kayo? The last time nawala ka dahil nabangga ka.
Okay naman. Hopefully makakuha namin this week yung sasakyan. Hindi natagalan lang.
Okay.
Anong nangyari, Tol? Kayong binagba o ikaw nang bumangga?
Hindi, kami nasa unahan Kami yung binangga.
Di ba ganyan ang rules? Kung sinong nasa likod, sila may kasalanan.
Kasi mag-merge kami sa highway Nung pumasok na sa highway, nag-change lane. Ang nagdadrive yung anak ko Nag-change lane na siya. Yung nasa same lane na sakyan sa likod, mabilis siya. Siguro hindi siya makontrol. Mag-change lane din siya sa gitnang lane. Yung nasa kaliwa, pupunta sa middle lane. So nagsalubong sila. Pinamahan kami yung kabila.
Hindi ko makita sa recording. Hindi ko makita sa recording Nakita ba ni Gina sa recording?
Kumalog lang Parang mahina na yung impact Pinagga kami.
Na-distract yata.
Tapos wala naman kayong Tol. Wala naman kayong whiplash side effect.
Wala naman.
Naalog ang utak.
Good thing lang. Walang na-injure. Pero kung may mabilis pang sasakyan na nasa likod namin, kasi nag-merge kami, 100 kph na yun Di ba? Mag-merge ka, dapat sasabay ka sa speed nung
dapat mabilis. Dapat.
Banggain ka ng 100 kph mahina survival mo. Buti wala nang sasakyan sa likod after nun.
Nag-worry ako. Akala ko ikaw ang nag-drive. So baka sabihin nila, ayan kasi.
Nakikisub-meeting.
Hindi ko gagawin yun.
Ginagamit mo yung device kaya distracted driving.
Yan. Naku, dito kasalanang malaki yan na nagsasalita ka ng mobile phone.
Then, na-distract din yung anak namin kasi nakikinig siya nun.
Ayun pala yun.
Hindi ko naman ina-expect na
Tol, akala ko sabi mo na total yung auto. So, naayos din. Napaayos na lang. Hindi na total.
Hindi naman. Yung left side lang naman. Pero yung bumangga, ang tawag mo doon na
Ang
tawag nila doon?
Privatize.
Side swipe?
Side swipe? Nawala na yung value, parang gano'n.
Total na. Total na.
Written off.
Sila doon eh.
Total right.
Palang complete
Iba
write-off.
term nila dyan?
Oh, write-off. Na-write-off. Yun, tama.
Malakas.
So malakas talaga ang impact.
Malakas kasi yung manigla.
Malakas ang impact pero mas ano ang kotse mo. Mas matibay ang kotse mo sa kusti niya. Kaya mas malaki.
Yung Elantra, yung nakabangga eh. Yung pasahero nila, shock eh.